Wow, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. How are you all? Thank you so much for joining us for this session. We're super excited to be here with you, even if it's online. So great to see that we can connect from all over the world and get together today to talk a little bit about social business. Thank you so much for joining us, for choosing our session. My name is Marcela. I'm the program director at Yunus and Youth. I'm speaking to you from São Paulo, Brazil, and it's a pleasure to be here and to be sharing more about our work with you as well. Together with me, we'll have Lucila, who will also be presenting today. She's based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and you'll be hearing from her in a minute. We also have Sofia Chapiro, who is our marketing director, who's also based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And Sofia will be helping us answering your questions in the discussion chat on your right. You can ask any questions you like. She'll be here to help us answer if we can't answer you when we are speaking. So let's get ready to begin. Thank you so much. I really want to know where are you joining us from. So please type in the chat your country, your city. We are very curious to see where are you all based and where are you hearing us from. It's great to have you all here with us. Awesome. Let's begin. Today, we're going to be sharing more about Professor Yunus and the Grameen Bank. We'll also be talking about the social business concept. And then later, we're going to help you with tips on how to start your own social business. We're going to talk about prototyping and testing, and presenting the Yunus and Youth Global Fellowship Program. Great. We see people from Paris, Frankfurt, Germany. Amazing. It's great to have you here. I wish I was in Paris, but hopefully next year we'll be able to join ChangeNOW in person and we'll all get to meet. Amazing. Do you know how the first ever social business was created? You can go into the interactivity tab and then you can answer yes or no. Click on yes or no, just so we know if you know about this. We're going to talk today a little bit about, how the concept was created. What was the first social business? So I see here that you're all answering no, which is great for me because then I'll get to tell you something new. Amazing. So I'm going to tell you a story today, and I hope you enjoy it. So way back in 1974, when Muhammad Yunus was an economics professor, he took his students on a field trip to a poor village in rural Bangladesh. When they arrived there, they met with a woman who made and sold bamboo stools. She told them that she had to borrow money from a loan shark to buy the raw materials to produce the stools. And after paying the loan shark back, she was left with just a penny of a profit margin. Professor Yunus thought about that and realized, what if there was a way for those women to borrow money at lower rates? This would get them to end up with a larger profit margin, and that would result in better life conditions for them and their families. Professor Yunus, as an economics professor, thought there was something terribly wrong with the economics he was teaching, and he had to do something about it. And that's why he took money from his own pocket and lent to 42 artisans from rural Bangladesh. He found out that it was possible to help them with this tiny amount of money, not only to help them survive, but also help them to spark a personal initiative and entrepreneurial mindset necessary to pull them out of poverty. So that's how the first ever social business was created. In 1983, Professor Yunus founded the Grameen Bank. Against all advice from banks and government, Yunus carried on giving these microloans and formed the Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank means village bank, and it was founded on the principles of trust and solidarity. Now, the Grameen Bank has over 9 million members. Of those, 97% are women. and they lend up to $100 million a month with a 98% repayment rate, which is amazing. And that's why on 2006, Professor Yunus and the Grameen Bank received the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to creating economic and social development from below. Awesome. Now we know how the first social business was created, but what is a social business, right? You might still be wondering. A social business exists to solve a social problem. So just like a nonprofit, a social business has a social mission, but as a traditional business, they generate enough revenue to cover their operating costs. These are companies in which investors recover their initial investment, but the profit generated is reinvested in the company itself to expand its social impact. What do you think are the main differences between social businesses and nonprofits? So please type in the chat, what are your ideas on what are the main differences? I'm reading the chat now, and I see that we have people from Brazil. I love it. Belgium, England, Israel, Washington, D.C. Oh my God, this is incredible. So excited to see you. Okay, so I see you started answering our questions. So what are the main differences between a social business and nonprofit? Taxes, independence for money. I think you're getting something. I think you already have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. Stakeholder versus shareholder value. Interesting. Okay, so what are the main differences between a social business and a nonprofit? So nonprofits don't generate profit. And the thing is that social businesses do generate profit. A nonprofit is a philanthropy. It's free of charge, whether a social business charges for the products and the services they offer. The main point here is that a social business is financially sustainable, while a nonprofit organization needs to rely on donations and fundraising, which is not something that is sustainable. A social business employs and pays their workers, right? While a nonprofit relies mostly on volunteers. And I think one of the most important things is that social businesses aim to put the beneficiary on a role of protagonist, while the nonprofit organization usually creates a codependency system. So in a social business, we have the mission of a social organization. So it is created with the goal of solving a social or environmental problem. It is created with the goal of making people's lives better, but does not rely on donations and grants or fundraising. It has a model, a business model that gets it to be that the operations can run. So this is the main difference between nonprofits and social business. And now we're going to go deeper into the 7 principles of social business as defined by Professor Yunus. I see that it's taking a while for the slides to change. Okay, now I think you should see my slide. So the first principle of social business is that businesses' objective will be to overcome poverty or one or more problems which threaten people and society, and not profit maximization. This means that the entrepreneur and his team are committed to improving the quality of life of low-income population by selling a product or a service that contributes to this. And here I bring you a quote of Professor Yunus himself that I really love. And he talks about how in the future, poverty will be something of the museums because it would no longer exist. And this is the first step, and it's something that we can do to try and achieve this goal. Moving on to the second principle. It's important that a social business is financially and economically sustainable. It takes a while to change the slide. Sorry about that. We thought it would be a bit faster. Okay, now you have the second slide. So the main products or service that the social businesses is selling needs to be able to financially support the business so that it does not depend on donations or fundraising for its operations. I just saw here that we have a suggestion from Serge, new business idea, Museum of Poverty. That's the dream, right? That in the future we won't need to have poverty in real life. So I hope you all join us and Professor Yunus in this quest for ending poverty, right? The principle number 3 is that the social business must have the potential to scale and operate efficiently, but no dividend is given to beyond the investment money. So I bring here another quote from Professor Yunus that I find is extremely revealing, that he says that $1 donated to charity has one life. $1 invested in a social business can be reinvested over and over again. So this means that the investors will put money into a social business. The social business will use this money, and as they grow, they will give the money back to the donor. They will have for the investor, they will get that money to invest in other social businesses. So thus creating a longer life for these businesses. And then we have principle number 4, that is the profit is reinvested for the expansion and improvement of the social business. So this means that when the investment amount is paid back, the company profit will stay within the social business for expansion and improvement, for scaling the social impact. Now we move on to principle number 5. That is that a social business must be gender sensitive and environmentally conscious. So it's very important for a social business to focus on a sustainable supply chain. So the social business is involved in a much larger ecosystem. It must be against child labor. It must manage the environmental impact of its activities as well. So always think about your social business as part of a larger ecosystem. So you need to consider that all that is involved within that, it's environmental and gender sensitive and censored to diversity. And next we have principle number 6. That is the workforce gets market wage with better working conditions. So as I was mentioning, it is important for us to think of a social business as an organization that's part of an ecosystem, and a part of this ecosystem are the people who work with you. So you must consider that these people are getting fair pay, right? And now we're going to go to the 7th and last principle of a social business, which is personally my favorite. That is, do it with joy. And there's a quote from Professor Yunus that I want to share with you because I think it's just perfect, and it actually like summarizes what I think a social business is. And it's just that making money is a happiness, and that is a great incentive. But making other people happy is a super happiness. So that's what I want to leave with you, that when you decide to create a social business and to lead a social business, you should do it with joy. Because in the end, we need to enjoy the ride, and we need to enjoy making people happy, because it won't be easy. I'm not telling you that it's a perfect universe and being a social entrepreneur is easy pie, that it isn't. It will be incredibly difficult, but it will be worth it. So in order to achieve all of what I mentioned to you, in order to make people's lives better, it will be tough, and that's why we need to do it with joy. And I just shared with you the principles and the concept of social business. You now know what a social business is. And I know that many of you have incredible ideas. We just saw some ideas popping up in the chat. So I know that young people have what it takes to create social business ideas. But do you have what it takes to take these ideas into action? So do you have what it takes to make a social business succeed? This is the main point that we're going to bring to you today. So it's how to get your social business ideas off the ground. And now I'm going to pass the word to Lucila, who will share some tips with you on how to put your ideas into action. Thank you all so much. Lu, the word is with you.
Thank you so much, Marce, for that amazing presentation. Good morning, everyone. It's very early in this side of the world, so good afternoon for those who are else. My name is Lucila, as Marce said, and I'm based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm seeing in the chat that you're asking if the conference will be available to replay. Yes, it will be available. So, as Marce was saying, many young social entrepreneurs have amazing ideas and are very committed to solving very pressing problems that we have today. But when it comes to make things happen or making those ideas something concrete, it's not so easy and they get stuck in the ideation phase. And some others just jump into the water without making sure that they are ready and they have everything they need to succeed. This is why today we're going to give you some tips so you can try the water before you jump to make sure that you can enjoy the ride and be ready to at least reduce the risk. Because as Marcia said, being a social entrepreneur, it's not an easy job. So let's start. I'm sure many of you are familiarized with these 5 steps. This comes from the Lean Startup methodology, and they are the fundamental stages for creating a social business. Basically, the first step is understanding the problem you want to solve, going to the roots of it, and also understanding why do you care so much about it and you want to solve it. Number 2 is defining. What exactly of that challenge that you identified already you want to solve? Just to give you an example, imagine this. How might we foster habits that prevent people from using single-use plastics? It's way more approachable than how might we save the planet, right? The second one, it's too broad. So defining and being specific, it's very important when it comes to social innovation. The third one is ideation. This is the fun one. When the whole team comes in, the energy goes up, you create a lot of ideas. And here you have to bear in mind that quantity is a condition for quality. You need to generate as many ideas as possible. Today we're going to focus in the last 2 steps, prototyping and testing. It's super important to have in mind that this is not a linear process that ends with testing. As you see in the arrow below, this is an iterative process. You gather feedback and you go back to ideation again and again and again. And I will come back to this in a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about what prototyping means to us. Prototyping for us, it's about making ideas tangible and building rough versions of your product or service to understand what is working and what is not working. We will come back to testing in a couple of minutes, but first I would like to ask you, you can type in the chat, why do you think prototyping ideas it's important? And I would also like to know if you actually prototype ideas with your teams. Have you tried this before? I'm curious to know. You know, sometimes prototyping, of course, takes time, so it's easier said than done. It's a very popular thing, but when we talk to many applicants to the fellowship, we usually find out that they don't prototype as much as they should. There I see, Joanna, to check the viability, exactly. To be sure the need exists. This is super important, right? And especially when it comes to social businesses that would never create a need, right? But they will address a real problem and making sure that what you consider a problem, it's actually a problem. It sounds basic, but it's kind of central to the process of starting a social business. So now we're going to go through 5 tips or examples of how to get your social business off the ground, prototyping and testing your solution. So let's go. Number one, prototyping comes in many shapes and sizes. Let me know in the chat if you have tried any of this. Option number one is creating a storyboard. Storyboards are like cartoons and they help you visualize the full experience of your idea over time. The good news is you don't need to be a cartoonist, you just need to go for it, do some drawings with some text, and it will help you check the flow of what's in your head. Option number two is creating an ad. You need to be careful with this one because this ad would be kind of fake, and it's to check if people would be interested, if you are communicating your value proposition in a clear way, what kind of questions people ask when they see your ad. Are they responding to it? So this is a great way to check how you are communicating your solution. Role playing as well. I see in the chat, viability, sorry, desirability. Role playing, it's a very good way of testing what it's not tangible, right? For example, services. They help you represent the experience and you can see what kind of interactions you can expect, what kind of reactions you could get. Of course, you will always be surprised along the way, but doing all of this will help you to be better prepared. I'm seeing, Marcia, what you're saying, that it takes a while to change. Good. Service prototype is very similar to role-playing, but it incorporates a more physical aspect. As you see, they are using boxes, right? So something very important about prototyping is that you don't need a big budget to do it. It's cheap, it should be fast, and the main goal is to check for everything that I'm reading in the chat, desirability, viability, what it works, what it doesn't. Of course, I think that many of us, when we say prototyping, the first thing that comes to our minds are products. This is like the simplest thing that we can think of. And prototyping products, it's super fun and one of my favorite things, to be honest. As you can see in the picture, prototyping a product can be super easy, right? As you see there, that's a Sharpie, a highlighter, some tape, and of course, this is not going to help you see if the technology works, but you can, for example, see if it feels comfortable in your hand, you know, what kind of angle it's the optimate one. So this will help for further steps into the process. I will start talking and you will see the image in a couple of seconds. You know, nowadays, of course, many of our solutions are digital solutions, and you can also prototype this. Prototypes for digital products, that can be apps or websites, can be physical prototypes for digital products, as you can see in the picture. And this helps you, for example, to understand if the button that you're putting in your interface it's comfortable to reach with your thumb and things like that. Many studies are conducted to understand how easy it is to interact with the interfaces. And of course, you can also generate digital prototypes for digital products. And there are many apps and websites that will help you to do this in a very intuitive way. And they also allow you, for example, to include some clickable buttons. So let me know in the chat if you have tried any of these prototyping strategies. I'm very curious to know. And we are going now to tip number 2, which is, I'm waiting for the slide to show, keep learning with an MVP. Interesting thing here, we have a new word. We were talking about prototypes, and now we're talking about MVPs. MVP stands for minimum viable product. And if you have been in the social innovation space or entrepreneurship space for a while, you already have heard this word. An MVP is the smallest and simplest version that you can build of your solution that delivers costume value. And there's a simple rule that you can follow when building your MVP, that is, remove any feature, process, or effort that does not contribute directly to the learning you seek. Now I need to wait a little bit because I need you to see what I am seeing on screen. But I can tell you that many of you might be thinking, Lucila, how is MVP different from prototype? And I think that's a very good question. I had to do some research to understand what the difference was, and I think these donuts help us a little bit, but I will go a little bit into detail to explain the difference. So, sorry. Here we go. Number one, you remember we were focusing today in the last two steps, prototype and test. So the MVP comes into the scene in the test part, not in the prototyping part. And testing will involve interaction with clients or users to get feedback. Basically, there are three main differences between prototyping and MVPing. I don't know if that's a word, but we can use MVPing in this workshop here. Number one is the scope. When you prototype, you usually create several prototypes, and you can also prototype, for example, only one feature of your service or solution. While an MVP is usually one MVP that you keep doing better and better and better. Now we're going to see an image that illustrates this very clearly. Number two, commitment. Prototypes, they are rough versions of whatever you're trying. And let's say that if you have to put your prototype into the trash, you won't regret it as much because you didn't put that much effort into it. But if you have to tear down your MVP, that's going to hurt a little bit more because they're usually more sophisticated, but still cheap and fast to create. And number three, and the most clear difference for me is the audience. Usually prototypes are for internal use. It's something that you use with your design team to test some things. And as you explained in the chat, many of you to check feasibility, viability, if it's comfortable or not, while the MVP it's supposed to be used by users or clients, and you are supposed to watch and observe how they interact and how they enjoy your solution, hopefully enjoy your solution, or if you're having any troubles, to learn from that experience. So MVPs are not about concepts or layers. They are about function and delivering real value in its simplest version. In the image that you're seeing, it's coming, I promise. A single wheel will not take you from one point to another, whereas a skateboard will do that for you, will deliver the value for you. So in the image below, we can see different MVPs that keep getting better, but already represent the whole solution, not a part of it or a single feature. There's a quote that I like very much from Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. I haven't talked to him, but I'm pretty sure he said this. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have landed too late, right? Sometimes, and we see this very often in our applicants, they wait until they have the perfect solution. The bad news is that if we wait until having the perfect solution, we will probably never launch. But at the same time, and I think this is very important because we are talking about social enterprises, we need to be very careful when we prototype and when we are launching first versions of our solutions, because we are usually trying to tackle very sensitive problems, right? So it's not just, okay, let's prototype. This is also very important to have in mind. So when I say that everyone MVPs, I mean everyone. This is the first version of Airbnb, so imagine. And what is coming next, I'm sure that you can recognize. I won't tell you. Okay, this delay, it's killing my flow, Marcela. Okay, I'm sure you recognize this, right? It's the first version of Facebook. In that time, the Facebook. So imagine how many iterations happened, right, in this product to be the interface they are today. This being said, let's go to tip number 3. Good news or bad news, prototyping, as we said already, never ends. What you will do if you launch your solution is building, observing, learning, and measure. And then building, observing, learning, and measure again. Something really important to have in mind is that learning, it's not only asking for feedback or conducting surveys or asking your user, how did you like it? Was it comfortable? But it's also about observing, right? Because nonverbal communication and interactions are super insightful when building a solution. Now, let me tell you a story about two amazing social entrepreneurs from Argentina. These are Nadia and Melanie. Nadia and Melanie quitted their corporate jobs to start the food market, a marketplace that sells healthy, locally sourced products at a fair price, empowering small producers. Melanie and Nadia decided to start small. They just had this idea. They left their safe jobs to try this. They created an Instagram account and uploaded a couple of cool pictures of food. And then they emailed some friends and family asking them to place an order to check the logistics and the whole experience. They were just curious to see if they were just dreaming or if this could be actually a thing. They emailed their family and friends on a Thursday and they were supposed to deliver the orders 1 week later. 3 days later, they decided to check, if their family ignored them or if they have placed the orders and, helped them out. And what they found is that a bunch of strangers had placed orders for products that they didn't even have yet. So, as you can imagine, and I don't have to tell you this, of course, all the orders from family and friends were cancelled because they had to rush to make sure they could deliver the orders for these people that just found this Instagram and ordered the products. So what happened here is that the demand was real and the MVP resulted in even more learning than they expected, right? So this is an example of MVPs going wild, but what I'm trying to say is that before making a huge investment, they tried and they started small. And in this case, the learning was bigger than expected and the confirmation of a true need was above expectations. Let me know in the chat if you're going well. Remember, you can leave your questions in the questions section and I will be happy to answer. Let's go to tip number 4. Prototyping saves time, money, and most importantly, trouble. When you don't prototype, there can be unintended consequences. And as I said earlier, this is especially more complicated when we are talking about social entrepreneurship. And we need to be mindful of this and very responsible in the process of building our solutions with the communities we work with. This is the case of play pumps. Please, if someone knows the case already, don't spoil it. I trust you. The play pump is a niche solution to the problem of providing clean drinking water in rural communities in African countries. The play pump water system is a playground merry-go-round attached to a water pump, as you can see in the image. The spinning motion pumps underground water into a tank raised above ground. Then the water in the tank is easily dispensed by a tap valve. This solution is also financially sustainable. The storage tank, as you can see also in the picture, has a four-sided advertising panel. This project was implemented a couple of years ago and received big donations from international organizations and also some famous people. So this all sounds great, solving a pressing problem for the community while children played in a sustainable way. It was innovative and it was smart, and as I just said, many people trusted this enterprise. Unfortunately, things didn't work quite well, and I will tell you a little bit of what went wrong. There are many things, right, that have been criticized. And of course, it's always easier to be critical once things have already happened. But let's go to the three main things. Number one, concerns about child labor were raised because some members of the community, when they needed water, they paid children to play even if they were not playing or, maybe didn't want to play, so they could get water. Number two, this of course wasn't designed for adults. And in many communities, women are the ones that are in charge of getting the water, and if children were not playing, they had to use the merry-go-round. And when using it, it was really uncomfortable for them because they had to bend. It's not for adults again. And they also said, when they were asked, that if the merry-go-round was placed near the highway, or the highway, they felt embarrassed because it seemed that they were playing instead of working, and they didn't like that. Number three, advertisement. As you can see in the picture, most of the time the advertising monetization model didn't work, and most tanks were seen without any advertisement, right? And so they were depending on donations, and many times local governments had to also put money to sustain the solution. So I want to ask you, this takes a while, so I will read it so you can start maybe answering. How do you think that could these mistakes been prevented? What things could have they done to avoid all these things that we just talked about? Thank you, Sophie. Thinking of all the things that we have talked until now. If you were the executive director of play pumps, let me know. What would you have done? Thank you, Sophie, for the time. I think we're doing great. Exactly, right? By prototyping. Maybe my question was a little bit too obvious, right? Prototyping, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Maybe what they could have done is running a small test before implementing all the play pumps that they implemented. They were many. Then you can research this. Later, what happened is that the executive director published a letter saying, we made a mistake, we will do better. They incorporated feedback from UNICEF, and now they are offering communities more diverse range of water solutions and not exclusively the play pumps. And they are placing them, for example, exclusively in primary schools because it makes more sense there. And as you're saying in the chat, understanding the problem better first, more research upfront. If they would have only placed one play pump and observed how the community interacted with it, I'm sure they would have got many useful insights. And also co-creating the solution with the community, right? Because it doesn't seem that this was something like organic for these communities. Amazing. We're almost reaching the end. Number 5, diversity matters. And I'm sure I don't even have to say this, but let me tell you a brief story. And here I really need the image. So in 1995, when I was 6 years old, I did this drawing of the obelisco. It's coming, I promise. This is very challenging, huh? There it is. As I said, I was 6 years old, 1995. This is the obelisco. It's a very famous landmark in my hometown, Buenos Aires. I don't know if any of you have visited here. Please let me know. So there's my representation of the obelisco. And my mom, when I showed her the drawing, told me it was a piece of art, right? And so did my uncle. They were astonished by my talent. And while I acknowledge this is a very cute picture and I quite frankly love the colors, I know my mom and my uncle might have been a bit biased, right? So what I'm trying to say is be mindful of diversity when asking for feedback. And honestly, be mindful of diversity in every stage of the process. But When you're asking for opinions, try to break the circle of your close friends and your family. We usually go there because we feel more comfortable and safe, but they are usually not representative of our users. We're almost done, Sophie. So the good news is that starting is easy. As we saw, you don't need a big budget, you don't need a lot of time. You just need, to stop trying to be perfect, start trying things, asking for feedback, building things, making them tangible. So we would like to leave you with this question: what is a prototype of your solution that you can build in the next 2 weeks? And also, if you do so, please consider applying to our Yunus and Youth Fellowship. We're going to tell you more about it in a couple of seconds. I will just go very quickly through finally the benefits of prototyping and MVPing. Number one, helps you define your value proposition. Number two, it's a great way to learn more about your solution and your client, both. Number three, in the long run, it saves you time, money, and as we saw, travel. And number four, it helps you try new features, keep innovating, and eliminating confusing or unnecessary ones. This being said, I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and we would love to tell you more about our fellowship. And for this, Marce, the floor is all yours.
Thank Lucila, for the great explanation. I hope you all enjoyed this super quick chat. If you want to learn more with us, please apply for the Yunus and Youth Fellowship Program. You can click on the right. We put a button for you. You can go directly to our website. It's www.yunusandyouth.com/apply. And then you learn all about the Yunus and Youth Fellowship Program. Applications are open until June 20th. And just like we mentioned, don't accept ideas into the Y&Y Fellowship, and that's why we like to reinforce the importance of MVP and prototyping. You have time to do it. If right now you still have an idea, you still have a few more days until June 20th to prototype and let us know how it went. What did you learn? What went right? What went wrong? So please go into the website and check it out. Check out our program. It's completely free for entrepreneurs. And we support entrepreneurs during 6 months. We have mentorings. We have an online platform with a complete activities to help you develop your business plan. Of the program, we have a final pitch competition to a panel of real social impact investors. And after you finish the program, you will join a community of global social entrepreneurs, and you get the chance to meet all of them, partner with them, work together. And once you're a Yunus and Youth Fellow, you're always a Yunus and Youth Fellow, so you'll be stuck with us for life. So please, if you enjoyed this session, join us, and we'll be happy to share more with you. And well, thank you again so much for staying here with us. This was incredibly short, but we want to thank you so much for being here. Please also leave your email. There's a button on the right. You can click on Connect With, send a message, and then you send us your email so we can send you this PPT and also many other resources that we have to help you prototype your. You can also follow us on social media. Check out our YouTube channel for other videos. Yunus and Youth is all about democratizing the access to knowledge. So we'll share everything for free, as much as we know, as much as we can. So thank you all so much for joining us. Please enjoy the rest of the summit and have a great day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.